So now the Correctional Services Department says it will appeal the Supreme Court of Appeal ruling that former President Jacob Zuma's release on medical parole was unlawful. On Monday, the Supreme Court of Appeal found that the release was unlawful, and they ordered Correctional Services to decide on the way forward. Zuma received a 15-month jail term last year after he was found guilty of contempt of court. He had refused to testify before the State Capture Commission. For now, we bring you some reaction, joined by Mzanele Manyi, the Jacob Zuma Foundation spokesperson, in studio with us. Very good evening to you. Thank you for your time. Now, the positions are ideal. I mean, you tweeted on your personal account speaking about how former President Jacob Zuma is now a free man. He's been released. But in terms of your understanding, there are ideal situations, but there are also legal processes. What is your understanding on the legal front?
Yeah, no, thank you very much for the opportunity, and good evening to your viewership as well. I think the first thing that I need to just say to you is that South Africa is in a very unfortunate situation where it would look like the courts, constitutional courts, Supreme Court of Appeal, in fact including some of the high courts, that they are still inspired by apartheid. And I've got evidence for this. I mean, if you look at this current judgment, you can go to paragraph 23 of this current judgment of the SCA. There, the SCA lays bare that the Constitutional Court's intent was to punish President Zuma. I mean, they say it in black and white, to punish President Zuma. Yet, in this constitutional dispensation that we have today, we no longer talk about punishment. People are taken to correctional services centers to rehabilitate them. We no longer have prisons now, we've got correctional services. But the Constitutional Court's intent, as exposed by the Supreme Court of Appeal, was to punish President Zuma. The same punishment that the Constitutional Court meted out to President Zuma, a very cruel 15 months, the Supreme Court of Appeal also wants to duplicate this punishment. You know, it was quite sad to see that the Supreme Court of Appeal is not recognizing parole as part of the sentence. They are saying, no, the commissioner must go and determine whether the part spent on parole, how much of it can be committed to be part of the sentence. In other words, it has not dawned on the Supreme Court of Appeal that when you are on parole, you are actually still a sentenced offender. You are still, in old apartheid terms, you are still a prisoner. Now, why is it that the Constitutional Court, the Supreme Court of Appeal has not understood this? So, indeed, this is the situation that we're sitting in. And this is despite the correctional services having been very clear. On the 7th of October, correctional services issued a statement where they confirmed that President Zuma has met all the conditions of being their inmate and complied and everything, and the time has come and gone. So President Zuma was sentenced for 15 months. So for all that 15 months, he was under the care and the direction of the correctional services. He could not go to his press conferences, he could not go to funerals. Now, why is it that we have a Supreme Court of Appeal that would want that period to be deemed holiday? And they are saying basically the commissioner must redetermine. It's quite upset.
Yeah, so where does this leave the former president, in terms of his position and strategy going forward?
Well, firstly, the first thing is that there is no order, although they mention it in the judgment. In fact, also, I mean, a point that one must also mention, the overreach that these courts have today. This court is not enough for it to want President Zuma to go back to incarceration. They even specify that you must go to this particular one. You know, as things stand, President Zuma, when he left, when he was released, he was not released from Escort prison. He was at Escort Correctional Services, later transferred to Transcorp Community Services. That's where he was. Now, the court has made a call that, no, you don't go to that one, you're going to go to that one. That is an executive decision. Yeah. Why do we have courts that have got no respect for the separation of powers? So this is a situation that we have, a serious situation of crossing the line, a serious situation of a double jeopardy. So basically, the Supreme Court of Appeal has actually now hinted that President Zuma must once again be sentenced without trial for some period to be redetermined. I mean, it's quite absurd. So going forward, President Zuma has spoken to his lawyers to see what is it that needs to be done from his side. So the lawyers will give him an opinion as to where to from here. But for now, the Correctional Services appeal, we think is the right thing to do. I mean, if you look even at the detail, if you look at the detail of that judgment is so absurd. The Supreme Court of Appeal has decided that Arthur Fraser's decision was unlawful. Now, when you look at why they say it's unlawful, they say it's unlawful because it did not take the recommendation of the Medical Parole Advisory Board. But in the law, Section 75, subsection 7 of the Correctional Services Act, is very clear that for all offenders that are incarcerated for 24 months and less, Arthur Fraser or the commissioner has got the final say. So he exercised that. Not only did he do that, he also took medical reports. Arthur Fraser looked at no less than five medical reports, 3 from the South African Military Hospital, 1 from Dr. Patswe, something like that, Dr. Patswe, who himself, that Dr. Patswe, is a member of the Medical Parole Advisory Board. And all of these 4 reports were saying, put the man on medical parole.
But according to the SCA decision by Judge Dati Makgoga, he says that the court, Arthur Fraser, could not simply ignore the recommendation of the Medical Parole Advisory Board because he holds a different view, because the board is an expert body on the medical part of the medical parole process, and that ordinarily the commissioner does not have that kind of expertise. Is that perhaps... Yeah,
but that's the point I'm trying to say to you, that Arthur Fraser did not rely on his expertise. He had 5 reports. The parole board report was 1 out of 5. Yeah. The 4 reports actually confirmed that he can go on medical parole. So it was not some individual decision. It was also expert opinion. The doctors that made these recommendations are all what you call it, specialist doctors. It's not like your GPs. All of them are specialist doctors. They made this recommendation, and there is nothing, and this is an important point, there is nothing in the law that says the Medical Parole Advisory Board has got veto powers. Absolutely nothing. There is nothing in the law that says if you don't agree with this body, it's just some people can throw around opinions, including the court. But the law does not give this body a binding authority. There's nothing like that in the law. So why is it that because it says something different, therefore the sky must fall?
Because it also spoke about Fraser basing his decision on former President Jacob Zuma's age, him being a former president, and that the correctional services didn't have the capacity to give Zuma the care he required. Those are also some of the reasons. But, you know, just going back to the way forward in terms of a legal strategy, could we see this matter going back to the Constitutional Court?
Well, it depends. Well, obviously, from the Supreme Court of Appeal, it has to go to the to the Constitutional Court, but via the Correctional Services appeal. So we hope that but you know, it's all academic actually, because there is no judge in this country, despite their apartheid mentality, that will have the goal to say that President Zuma must go back to jail despite having finished 15 months sentence. I think this must be very clear that President Zuma has been a very disciplined inmate. He has complied with all the regulations as given by the Correctional Services. And the Correctional Services has already confirmed this. Now, why is it that this court is not happy with the executive authority of the Correctional Services? Yeah. Why are they second-guessing that?
So perhaps moving quickly to a different take, the ANC and SACP and COSATU will be embarking on a national day of action, just showing their displeasure to the release of Chris Honey's killers, Janusz Walush. What has the Jacob Zuma Foundation been saying about this and the position?
Look, I'm sure as a foundation, obviously, that matter did not arise, but I can just tell you my own opinion on the matter, that I think this whole thing, also both these dates being announced, these judgments being announced on the same day, was some strategy of sorts, and I want to call on South Africans not to fall for it, not to create any violence. This is just aimed at provoking people of South Africa in order for some upheaval of sorts to happen. And I would call on all South Africans to react with restraint and not turn the country upside down. Why is it that we have a constitutional court that will decide that a murderer, who even as we speak has not repented, even as we speak has not told the truth as to what really happened, what justifies releasing a person like this? So indeed, I think South Africans were being provoked. We have to be careful of our judiciary, that our judiciary is at the center of creating instability in this country. So we really have to re-examine what actually is the agenda of the judiciary.
Okay, very well. Thank you so much. Let's perhaps leave it there for now.